It's not soap operas, that's for sure.
There you go.
Penn State obviously is a team that's off to a great start and scoring a lot of points.
Right.
What's the difference from a year ago to what the program is this season?
Yeah, I think once you can get, through your first year and get to your second year and then retain people, which they have, I think that really helps. Obviously, big fella has really helped them. The transfer from Northern Illinois, like he gives them another dynamic. They have good size. The kid from Xavier gives them another, big body there. But, they have good athleticism. They have good skill. Freddie DeLeon is a good athlete, made 4 threes in the last game, gives them another defender, another guy that can handle the ball. Ace Baldwin and Hicks and those guys have got a lot of experience. Nick Kern, very good player. You got to treat Nick Kern like a starter because he is. But just having those guys in the system at both places, Nick Kern and Ace Baldwin, and then having these guys that now they've retained and going into year 2 is really helping. I think that's when you have the system that they have, it takes a little bit of time to understand like how hard you have to play, how disciplined you have to be in the press. You got to be in shape to push the basketball and score points, and you got to have 10 guys to be able to do it, or you just kind of get worn down. And now they have that depth and they have that skill, and then the experience that I mentioned. They're a well-oiled machine. Obviously, Clemson got them the other day, but it's on the second day of those tourneys, and those are really hard because you don't have time to prep. And then Clemson turns around and beats Kentucky. So obviously. They put themselves in a great position, and like you mentioned, they really scoring the basketball. Averaging around 90 points a game. And obviously at home, they've played a lot of home games. They've really scored the ball and played well.
Are you guys where you thought you would be now that it's Big Ten season?
It's a little harder for us. I think just because Daniel went out in that second game. So kind of making that adjustment, it just kind of shows our depth and our ability to play different ways, because obviously we would have played both ways, but how much, and now we're playing smaller, but you still got to be able to make big plays, especially when it comes to rebounding the basketball. But no, I think we're making strides. We still have breakdowns from a defensive standpoint, but we have fewer breakdowns. We've had really one game, hope I'm right here, where we haven't taken care of the basketball. The other games, we've won all of them. So if anything can just have that direct connection, hopefully they can grasp that. And I think that's going to be challenged in this game a lot, just because Penn State forces a lot of turnovers, but Ole Miss forced a lot of turnovers. NC State forced a lot of turnovers. Marquette forced a lot of turnovers. And we really just succumbed to that when it came, being Marquette. I'd put that on their system, I put that on their quality of play, but I also put that on being on the road. Now we're back on the road, and so now you don't go back to the Ole Miss or the NC State game. On this one, you go back to the Marquette game. It's okay from the Marquette game to Penn State now in our next road game, where have we made improvements? And I think that improvements doesn't lie in this interview. I think it lies in how we play at Penn State.
Yeah. You mentioned the depth, and Caleb's a guy that I think people forget was a starter for your team a couple years ago, former Mr. Basketball. To have him as a reliable depth off the bench option, how big is that for your program?
Yeah, he made some really good plays in the NC State game. I thought he made some key rebounds, some good hustle plays. He didn't finish, in the next game, and that's what he's got to do a better job of. He's got to be able to finish, around the rim. But he gives us that versatility on both ends, a guy that can play both positions, and that really helps us.
What have you learned about playing in these early Big Ten season games? Right after, jumping in and out of non-conference competition?
Yeah, it kind of depends on style. And when you look at the style of the two teams we're getting ready to play, it's given us some trouble in the past. Even though we had success against Penn State last year, I think they had a tough time with Zach. The games at our place, there's a lot of things in our favor, just right there. But I think just trying to understand the style of play, because it used to be, okay, you got a Big Ten team, and then the style was kind of the same, right? You get a team in there like Michigan State 15, 20 years ago that really pushed the basketball. Illinois, right when I got here, had really good teams, and they really pushed the basketball. So you'll see some teams in our league like Iowa that really pushes it and scores the basketball. Nebraska, does some really good things what they run offensively. And now, kind of with the East Coast influence, it's more closer to playing, that pressing style team of Penn State, and then playing that traditional type Big East team, the way Maryland changes everything and makes it so hard for you. So it's pretty cool, to be honest with you, even though it's hard on our end. But it's pretty cool because you see a lot of differences within the conference, and I think you're going to see that with the schools that came from the Pac-12. You're going to see some different styles. You're going to see more zone there. You're going to see different looks, with USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington, that almost kind of is reminiscent of an MTE or just a high-level non-conference game. So it's, like they say, it's not your dad's Big Ten, right? Yeah.
Have you been able to gauge the Big Ten in any way of what they've done in conference, or just?
Yeah, out of those 4 teams that I mentioned, I've only watched Oregon. So I just happened to, I was just stuck. We were stuck in the airport, so I watched it. So you normally just move to your next opponent.
Right.
And if you have common opponents, which we do now because they played Alabama, you just see them. But you really just kind of worry about who you have next and you move to that. But no, I don't. That's what, like, voting for stuff, and rankings, and all that business. Like, how does somebody who votes be able to watch everybody play? You can watch everybody's highlights, you can see who won, but, like, how do you really know? You don't, so it's a lot of guesswork.
With those METs, you guys have won, I think it's 4, maybe 5 back-to-back. Seems like some of those you guys have gotten to a kind of a gritty level where you're really, kind of gutting it out. And do you think those bring that out of you in a way that maybe other early season games wouldn't?
I think it's very beneficial to be able to gut out victories. But as a coach, you don't want to win in them, right? You love the experience when you win, and then you hate that you couldn't get separation in a loss and push it out. So I think they've really helped us, both of those games. And I think our 3 non-conference games, the fact that they weren't, our first 3 games of the season weren't blowouts, I think that helps us. It allows us, because we play quality opponents, and even though it's low to mid-major, those are the teams that have beat us in the NCAA tournament in the past. So, we always talk about that. We always talk about, making sure you understand how good a player there is out there. And you saw it from the left-handed kid from Yale, just how good he was and how good of a shot maker he was. So there's great players out there, but I think any of those experiences help you. There's no experience like playing on the road, and that's what we're doing here. So we've beaten some quality people. We've beaten some good teams. We've obviously gotten beat by one quality team, but we still have only been on the road twice, and one of them counted and one of them didn't. But, who else is going into their 3rd road game right at this point in the year either, besides people that get bought, right?
Just Caleb's attitude, Caleb First's attitude.
Yeah.
Last 2 years, obviously it's been hard on him at times. But I think that's kind of the guy that you want in your program that you've said that you want.
Yeah, no question. And him and Trey and everybody, was affected by Zach Edey's emergence. You can't leave that out of the equation, right? You just can't. And that's part of it. When you got the best player in the country, people are gonna, get their minutes hit. Yeah. And now, he's in a better position than he was last year because of it. But we've also had to go to where we thought we get utilized the best with Trey Kaufman in terms of how we use him and putting skill out on the court. So he's been great. He's got a great attitude and does things the right way, and does a lot of little things for us, and we appreciate it.
Do these elf skits kind of show his charisma and stuff that maybe people don't see on the floor?
What's that?
Do the elf skits kind of show Caleb's charisma and personality a little bit more?
Yeah, no doubt. Some people think that's acting and some people don't. No, so it's he's very outgoing after he gets comfortable with you. He's not going to be outgoing until he gets to that comfort level. But no, those are pretty cool. I just saw the last one. That was pretty good. Thanks.
Yep.